In preparation for today's talk, I did a dry run with my 13-year-old twins at home yesterday. And they said to me, Dad, three things. One, it's boring. Two, it's too long. And three, forget about being funny. So, thank you. God, I love the honesty of 13-year-olds. So anyhow, I'm the executive director of a program called the San Francisco Sheriff's Department 5 Keys Charter Schools. We operate 3 charter schools across the state where we have an exemption that allows us to operate anywhere in California. And today my talk is a little bit about the work that we do inside the jails, because we were originally founded not as a traditional charter school, but a charter school that operates inside of correctional settings. So my talk is what happens when we turn our jails and prisons into schools and colleges. And I actually love this photo. It's one of the most visceral photos that we have. This was in the San Francisco Chronicle in 2013, and this shows one of our, I guess it's 5 different graduates that we have in County Jail number 4. And it really shows the juxtaposition of being behind bars, their orange jumpsuits on, and that with the cap and gowns and black robes showing the accomplishments that they have. So part of my work is I go around and I talk to a lot of folks about what we do and the importance of education in jails and educating inmates. And I had no idea when I started doing this that this was really a provocative question and a radical concept in many ways. For me, it seemed like the most natural thing to do. People in jail have no education. That's one of the contributing factors to why they're there and why they continue to go back to jail. But when I started talking to people about this from all different walks of life, I found that many people are really opposed to this. And they think that this is literally just another liberal, soft on crime, and I love this term, hug-a-thug idea. Hug-a-thug, can you imagine? That's actually a term, Google it. So 7 years ago when I accepted this position, I had no idea what I was in for, that correctional education would be so polarizing. I had assumed at the time that it would be the norm and that it should be the norm. So as controversial as correctional education may be, part of my talk today is I want to argue and hopefully convince you that this is one of the most important public safety initiatives that we could undertake. So here we are. This is a typical classroom. This also is from the San Francisco Chronicle. 5 Keys Charter Schools and Programs. We're the first charter school in the nation to operate inside of a county jail. When folks think of a charter school, they typically think of a school like where my kids go to and where I was a principal of years ago. A typical K-8 school or a middle school or a high school. And when I tell people, no, we're a charter school that operates inside jails, that serves adults, that our average student is 27 years old, they still say to me, so tell me about the kids. You mean my kids? Because our students are adults. Our vision is really simple. Our goal is to redefine the way people think about the role of education in restoring communities. And let's face it, the communities where our students come from need restoration, as do our students. So now for the next 11 minutes and 29 seconds, I'm going to talk a little bit about the role that 5 Keys plays in the efforts of the San Francisco Sheriff's Department, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Departments, and the Department of Justice Attorney General's Office plays in trying to redefine the role of education. Before I do that, though, I want to back up a little bit and talk about why we should even consider this. I mean, after all, these people have done bad things. They've committed crimes. They're locked up. They're locked up to keep us safe, right? And I'm not just being facetious. I'm not Pollyannish about crime, as a good friend of mine, Sonny Schwartz, would say. I understand that there's a lot of dangerous people in jail and need a lot of work. But I also understand that these people, our students, are getting out of jail. They're getting out of prison, and they're coming back to our communities. And I really hope that when they come back to our communities, they come back a better person. Sheriff Lee Baca in Los Angeles said that it's our patriotic duty to make the people coming out of prison better individuals than when they went in. Because when we think of patriotism, we think of setting missiles and bombs overseas and blowing up places. For me, patriotism is making our community safer and helping restore lives, and the lives of the kids, the children of our students. So why should we consider this and why should we care? We should care because a child with an incarcerated parent has a 1 in 8 times greater chance of becoming incarcerated themselves. They have a 1 in 6 chance of being expelled or suspended from school. And guess what they do when they're out of school, right? They get into trouble. So if you don't care about the kids, what about caring about public safety? The US has about a 67% recidivism rate. That means that close to 70% of the time, when somebody gets out of the jail, they're going to return right back to jail. What other program or what other agency in the world besides a governmental agency would continue to invest in a program that fails 70% of the time? Well, the US government, of course, right? Talk about the definition of insanity, right? We keep doing the same old thing, expecting different results, and we don't get them. The belief in deterrence, that crime is a deterrent, well, I think that the 70% failure rate shows that deterrents simply don't work either. So if you don't care about the fact that we keep doing the same thing and it's broken, you don't care about the fact that our children, the children of incarcerated parents will end up incarcerated themselves, maybe we should care about the economy. Remember the 1992 presidential campaign, the phrase, "the economy, stupid, was born"? Well, it is the economy. And it is stupid because we're spending over $100 billion a year on locking people up in state and federal prisons and those that are convicted in serving their sentences in county jails. $100 billion a year. When we add the cost of victimization, the courts, parole, probation, and all these other ancillary costs associated with crime and punishment, we're really talking close to $450 billion a year. And that's for something that fails 70% of the time. So I was recently at a probation and parole meeting where we were brainstorming with community-based agencies about how we can reform the system. And one of the heads of the parole department compared the current state of corrections with riding a dead horse. I thought, this is perfect. And what she said was, when you ride a dead horse, the only thing that you should do is get off that dead horse. But in corrections, other strategies are often used. And not just corrections, we could apply this to any large bureaucracy, perhaps the school district that you work at, or college, or the DMV. What are the other strategies that are employed? Well, we could buy a stronger whip, right? Really rip that horse into shape. We can change riders. We can declare that this is how we've always ridden that dead horse. We could arrange a site visit to go visit other dead horses. That's a good one. I've done lots of those. We can form a committee to study the dead horse and form a quality control group. Or, my absolute favorite, we could promote the person in charge of that dead horse as supervisor. I've worked for that supervisor in the past. So since 1980, we've seen a continual decline in education spending at all levels. However, we've also seen a 127% increase in the amount of money that we spend on corrections. And there's not a whole lot of corrections going on. So, how do we move from simply warehousing people to educating them? And here's two great photos. One of those is an actual Five Keys charter school dorm room in San Francisco County. Can you guess which one? As a call to action in 2003, the San Francisco Sheriff's Department, a law enforcement agency, started the first charter school for adult prisoners in the country. This is literally re-owning education. Sheriff Michael Hennessy and a good friend of mine, attorney Sonny Schwartz, did this to address the cycle of incarceration. One of the things that they focused on, the 5 keys: employment, family, community, and recovery, and education. They realized that these are the 5 components that are necessary to help break that cycle of incarceration. I mean, think about it. What a concept. Go to jail, get a high school diploma. It literally beats sitting on the bunk all day, watching Oprah, or learning how to become a better criminal. Because that's honestly what happens inside of jails during the day if they're not engaged in programs like school. So instead of watching Oprah, they're learning physics, government, history, or just how to read. That second photo in that picture, that's actually a nicer dorm room than I had in college. That's a Norwegian prison room where they have a 20% recidivism rate. So the challenge is moving from the traditional notion of crime and punishment to a restorative approach. The traditional system says when a person commits a crime, they transgress against the state and must be removed from society. The restorative approach says we should look at when someone commits a crime, the crime is against individuals, and we need to do something to repair that harm. And there are other relationships that need to be restored too, like the children of those that are incarcerated. That's actually a 5 Keys classroom right there, and that's an actual jail dorm in San Francisco. So by reinventing corrections and changing the hearts and minds of law enforcement agencies and prison and jail staff, we can change the hearts and minds of those that are incarcerated, the inmates. And we need to do this because, as I said in the past slides, nearly 100% of the people that are currently incarcerated are coming back out to our communities. It's a huge challenge taking somebody who's been on the streets for many years, been removed from education for as many as 25, 30 years, or as few as 1 or 2, and having them be arrested, going through withdrawal, possibly through some of their addictions, and then being given a placement test to figure out what their reading and math levels are, and then being placed in school. That's a tough nut to crack. And we experience a lot of resistance at first. But what we also find is, after about 2 weeks, they want to be in school. Their minds are clear for the first time, and they're able to focus and concentrate on their studies for the first time. And what happens is then we develop waiting lists inside the jails, in both the San Francisco and Los Angeles jails, where we can't even meet the demand and needs of all the students that want an education. And it then becomes a challenge to find space where we can hold class. So here we have in this photograph, this is an actual jail built around a school. That top photo is students lining up to go to class every single day. There are 10 classrooms there in the county jail in San Bruno, San Francisco County Jail, which is actually in San Bruno. And they line up. We have 26 different gangs that attend school there every day. And the amazing thing is, despite the fact that we have 26 different gangs on the streets would literally kill each other on sight, the school corridor is the safest place in the county jail. We have a 90% reduction in violence in the school dorms and in the school hallway. And so if you don't believe in corrections for the kids, for the economy, or because it's a broken system, what about caring about it because people actually work in the jails? And a safer jail makes a safer place for people to return home to their families. Also, a lot of people in jail actually aren't in there for violent crimes, and so we would want to keep the jail safe for them as well. So in this school, what do? They study everything from literacy, beginning to read. We have a very low literacy rates, to studying physics, arts, construction, history, English, bike repair, and we provide direct access to community college. We actually facilitate students as they prepare to graduate to go into college. In many cases, we actually co-teach the college classes with the college instructors because they're only there a couple days a week, and by having our instructors also help facilitate the classes, we can provide the additional support necessary for them to be successful in college. In fact, the professors that teach in the jails often say that those students that are co-taught by our teachers, those students are more successful in custody than their students out in the community. So quickly, who are our students? Well, our students are those that are doing life on the installment plan. 65% of them lack a high school diploma. Well, actually, 100% of our students lack a high school diploma. 65% of those incarcerated do. 70% are addicts. 78% have never had a job for more than a year. And 80% of them had been victims of childhood assault or abuse. They read at an average level of 5th grade. After learning this, it's kind of clear about why our students actually end up incarcerated. So how do we measure success? Well, here we are at a graduation photo. The good news is we discovered the ingredients to the secret sauce, correctional education. The results, we've had over 800 graduates so far. We increased reading levels 2.3 levels on average after 10 weeks. The jails and prisons have become a safer place where we operate by reduction in violence by 90%. In one dorm, our Keys of Change dorm, we actually have reduced violence to 0 in 1 year. We have a 50% reduction in recidivism in San Francisco compared to nearly 70% across the state. We have a 50% reduction, not a 50% recidivism rate. It's the lowest in San Francisco. That translates into less crime and safer communities. We also were named Charter School of the Year last year, which is amazing considering that we actually operate inside of a jail and the other 1,200 charter schools in California are more traditional schools that serve kids. We were approached by the U.S. Department of Education, and they actually created a model based on ours, and they provided funding for it, and it's available out there. And if you're ever interested in Google 5 Keys Charter School and U.S. Department of Education, you can find that plan. And keeping it consistent with no good deed goes unpunished, we just learned this week that the Department of Finance is actually seriously considering ending funding for our program for students above 26 years of age. Sad but true. Fortunately, we have a lot of allies on our side, and we're doing our best to stop that from happening. And I see I'm exactly out of time right now. So thank you very much.